So I am Evan Phoenix. I am not giving a technical talk. I'm going to be talking about really how to be a positive force in open source. So both as someone who has started a project and someone who wants to contribute to a project. So who in here has ever contributed to an open source project? Okay. Who in here has an open source project that they started of their own? Yeah, sort of like I thought, it was about the same number of people. Pretty much everybody has one. So I thought this was a really good talk to give, and this is sort of the second or third time I've given this talk, so I think you'll really like it. So anyway, I'm Evan Phoenix. I'm the lead developer for Rubinius, and Engine Yard is very gracious to pay me to fly around and talk to you lovely people and to work on Rubinius. So when you're working on, so the big thing is open source, working in open source is really a social thing, right? You are figuring out how you're going to interact with other humans, trying to get some chunk of work done. And so what I'm going to introduce is sort of these 4 laws or guidelines. Can you read that okay? 4 laws or guidelines that are going to be sort of exemplified as we go through the rest of the slides, and that they'll come up in each scenario. So the first one is that contributors are a privilege. Sometimes they don't seem like a privilege. Sometimes they seem like a complete pain in the ass. But if you remember that having them on your project is a privilege, a lot of great things come out of keeping that and remembering that fact. So the second one is that no is always an acceptable answer. You shouldn't be afraid to have a strong opinion about something as long as you're willing to have a discussion about what that thing is. The third, responsibility is power. The more someone feels that you have given them some responsibility, some level of trust, the more that person will amaze you. And we'll kind of look at that as we go along. And the last one is you have to communicate a lot. Open source really does not work if you don't have a lot of, as many communication avenues as you can come about. So IRC channels and mailing lists and meetups and all that stuff are vitally important to the health of your project. So you've got a project and you've got contributors. What's the first thing that you should always keep in mind when you're interacting with your fellow contributors? Is be nice. It's sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes it feels like they're trying to ruin your week. But you have to remember that they're doing you a favor. They have wanted to take the time and contribute. They want to be part of your project. So you need to keep your cool in all scenarios. Every time this happens, keep your cool. So let's look at a really quick case study of where you might not keep your cool. I'm sure if you've had a project, we've all had this patch come in, or this request, or this mailing list post of the unwanted feature. So in this particular case, we're going to use a real simple one, which is someone says, hey guys, I added the ability to avoid flushing the toilet. And I'm sure everyone, you're thinking, oh, come on, man. This is a stupid feature. It's going to make everything smell. I realize why you're an idiot. Oh, that was weird. Maybe idiot is, can I not say idiot in Colorado? Is that some, okay. But you need to just relax. Just take a deep breath. Remember that they want to help. They came to you. You didn't go out, you don't hire them, you're not paying them. They came to you because they think that your project has merit. So what you need to say to them instead of saying, you're an idiot, this is the stupidest thing I have ever heard, say something like, that's great, but this project is really not ready for your awesome. We're not ready to integrate this piece of amazingness because we're just not at that stage yet. And don't placate them, but be honest with like if you think, well, this is not really the way that we want to go, that's fine. So have a community. So then talk about why they think it's a good thing to be in the project, why you don't want it. Sometimes, in this case, you think, do you start off this whole process thinking, this guy is a complete idiot, he has no idea what he's doing, and by the end of this process, after you've talked to them, you realize, he is totally brilliant. This is an awesome feature. And if you discount it right away, and you don't have the communication, even just a short 5-minute conversation with them, you might never realize that this is actually a really great feature for you to have. So let's say that you have decided that you don't want that. So there's going to be time that you don't want that feature. There's going to be times where you're going to have disagreements. And so you're going to want to decide, okay, I really want to do this. I want to be doing something else. So in the past, and it's actually great to see this, because in the past, so 3 or 4 years, the idea of forking a project has actually grown into be a positive thing rather than a negative thing. And so that's something you need to keep in mind. You need to fork for all the right reasons. Fork a project for love, not for hate, whatever you do. Because every time you fork it for hate, nothing bad comes of it. So a bad reason to fork a project. The other guys are total douches. Bad reason. Nothing good will come out of it. A good reason is, I want to experiment with something new. So if you have had a project and you've had a fork happen, you might be thinking, well, like this is frustrating or whatever. First off, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you decide to fork a project, do it in public. Fork your project in public. Make it available for other people to see and to use. Because as you get that idea, the other people in the project can see it. They maybe will realize, oh, you're onto something really great. Let's just merge them back together. Let's reintegrate them. If you go off and you do it in private, you may never have that really great communication and that integration and that bringing them back together. So really let the forks be friends as much as you can. So you've got contributors, and you've got forks, you've got all these things going on. There's a tendency to want to feel like you have a modicum of control over the situation. And so the big P word comes in. And this is going to be my plea in this part of this discussion, to not have too much process. Because the more process you have, the more contributor pain you have. And I've seen projects that are just getting started. They are a big existing project, and they decide they want to let outside contributors in. So the first thing they do is they write 20 pages of process about how those contributors are going to be interacting with the community. And that is really just going to kill the buzz, man. But on the flip side, you can't have too little process, because too little process means that the project itself starts to absorb that pain. Because now with no process, it's a complete free-for-all. No one has any idea of who's doing what or where it's happening, and everybody sort of just gets tired of having to be churned over all the time. So you need that middle ground. But what you should do is try to avoid complicated setups and workflows. And I see a lot of, this is both technical and non-technical. So on the technical side, I see a lot of people, when they're getting going in their open source project, and they decide, okay, we want to have, and we're using Git, we need a really complicated Git workflow, because Git is really hard. So there needs to be a 5-step process that everybody needs to go through every time they want to change anything. And the reality is that that's fine if you feel that that process is born of an existing failure that Git has. But don't go into it thinking, I need this really big complicated thing. Like a really simple thing that I personally do or don't do is, people are always saying like, oh, you need to be using, never work on master. Never work on master if you're working on a project. I'm calling shenanigans, because all the people who say that have never told me what the problem with working on master is, or oh, I was working on master and then this big thing blew up, blah, 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 blah. If you've had that pain, that's fine, but don't enforce these complicated workflows and setups from the get-go unless you feel like, until you have actually experienced the things that they're meant to alleviate. Because premature process is the root of all frustration. Every time you have a new contributor come in and you tell them, oh, that's great, you want to contribute, okay, you wanted to fix the README, you added some periods, that's great, that's awesome, you're going to be one of our contributors, but I need you to read this pamphlet first. And I need you to go through, and we're going to have a quiz afterwards before I can, they're just going to go away. Remember back to the laws, they're doing you a favor. So you need to figure out how to incorporate them as seamlessly as possible. So you've got process, hopefully not too much. So let's look at another case study. You've got a very eager contributor who comes to you and they said, hey, I've got 10 patches. And you're thinking, awesome. Because this person's interested, they're working on it, and there's nothing makes me happier in the morning than to find this email in my inbox and to see like, oh, brand new person, I've never heard of this person before, I've never talked to them, 10 patches. Amazing. And then you go and look at the patches. And some of them are a year old, they're overriding stuff that you've since changed, and they introduced 5 new dependencies on 25 new gems, and they're in a completely different style. And this is frustrating, because all this momentum, all this great karma that you felt like you had has now been withered away because you realize these patches are just garbage, just total garbage. And so go back, remember the laws, and use this as a teachable moment. Go back to the person and have a conversation with them. Discuss the fact that, your patches are great, but we need to do these things in order to get these patches back in. So go back, work with them a patch at a time. Don't let them disappear on you. Say, okay, oh, you wanted to add this feature, that's great. Let's go in and add it. I'll help you out adding this one, and then kind of put them on their own. And having this discussion is very empowering to these new users, because to them, you're someone very important because it's your project, or you're some person who's been on the project for a long time. So if you're taking time out of your day to help them out, to get them started on the project, most of them will be very thankful of the time that you're spending with them. And in that discussion, sometimes you'll decide like, okay, you know what, you have a very valid point about, this patch or that patch that we weren't doing before. So again, be agile, revise your process. Don't be totally stuck with the process that you came up with a year ago. As new contributors come in, you're going to have new problems that you never envisioned. Revise your process. Get rid of process. Add new process as you need to. But do it based on the discussions and the actual input that you're getting from your contributors. And after you have this discussion, the worst case scenario of having this is that they tell you, well, I'm not willing to change for you. I think that my coding style is awesome, and X, Y, and Z. And that's okay. You just tell them, sorry, have a good life. I don't think it's going to work out between us. No hard feelings. And being willing to admit that if you feel like it's just not working out is fine. It's the best thing that you can do if you feel like it's just not going to be a good fit. But that's the worst case scenario. That's also the least case scenario. The best case, and the more common case, is that because you've taken time out of your day, you get them coming right back and saying like, oh, no problem, I didn't realize. Oh, I missed these docs, or I didn't know X, Y, and Z. I'll get right on that. And a lot of times, they spent maybe a few weeks writing these patches, and then a day later, they come back and they're all completely rewritten because they've got this newfound enthusiasm for the project because you took your time out. And Because enthusiasm for your project is transformative. Anytime that the person feels like, wow, this is amazing, this is something I really want to do, it's something that they get out of bed in the morning to do, it's something they're thinking about in the shower, that is a transformative thing. If you can make someone enthusiastic about your project, even if it's just something trivial like, oh, yeah, you wanted to change the README, and they get excited because, oh, I can tell my friends that I'm a contributor to an open source project. Just that little bit of enthusiasm will drive them to contribute more to your project. It might drive them to start their own projects and to sort of foster the feeling of goodwill throughout the land. I don't know. So, this case of you've got a contributor coming to you with 10 patches is awesome, but unfortunately it is the minority case. More often than not, what happens is someone will see your project and they'll say, you know, this project sounds really interesting. I like the idea. I don't really know anything about it. How do I get involved with the project? I get this a lot with Rubinius. So what you need to have is easy wins. Because they're going to come and they're going to say, how can I help? What can I do to help out your project? Because I think it's great. And if you have simple goals and easy tasks for them to do, it will move them down the road to becoming a full-time contributor very quickly. The easiest one is the ability to just tell them, oh, okay, great, run this command and fix what's broken. For instance, say you go through and you write a bunch of specs and you don't care that you're running red. You tell them, oh, run the spec suite, find the first one that's red, see if you can fix it, and ask me any questions that come out of that. You'd be amazed, when you've been working on a project for a long time, you start to forget, you end up creating your own reality distortion bubble about how the project is. And when you get these questions from new users, you're enlightened again to the fact that, oh yeah, we never documented that. Or that's a really good point. We've been living with that pain point for so long that I never even thought to change it. Right. So a good example of this is, from my professional life, is Rubinius and RubySpec. I don't know why the slide's in here. Anyway, so I'm going to give a specific example of someone who went down this path with Rubinius. So his name is Dirk-Jan. He is Dutch. This is Dirk-Jan right here. He's got a jacket on or something. And this is Dirk-Jan's first commit to Rubinius. So this is from 2008. So this is almost 3 years old, 2.5 years old, and it looks like a big commit. It was actually adding some spacing into a file, or moving something around, or checking a return values. And he did it he had to do it 5 different or 6 different places because it was a spec and it was duplicated. So it's actually a very simple spec. So this is how he got started. We basically told him, okay, go out and run them and come back and fix one of those easy ones. So this is one where it was like, oh, we weren't checking all these return values. Okay, easy. If it's, if the return value isn't the thing, raise an exception, done. So very simple, something very easy that we could point him to. And as of, this is as of a couple, 2 weeks ago, he had since that time, he has 446 commits. He's just a guy who likes the project, who, because we were able to bring him into the community quickly, because we were able to give him interesting things right off the bat that he could go out and look at to fix, he had enthusiasm for the project. And then he starts engaging in conversations, high-level conversations. Oh, there's that new feature? Hey guys, could I try writing that? Oh yeah, go ahead, knock yourself out. And getting more involved in the project and more involved, because everybody needs that first little piece to get involved. Basically, the easy wins are the gateway drug to your project. You cannot get people into your project without those easy wins. Projects that have, where the first thing that a contributor must do is rewrite some huge section of the architecture, you're never gonna have any contributors. You're gonna languish on your own. You have to give people easy inroads into getting involved and let them grow into the person who can rewrite that backend architecture. So the next section here is sort of what happened, and this is a more controversial section, is so you've gotten contributors, and say it's, you've been working on the project for a few years, and now you've got a bunch of people working on it, and you have a tendency to call yourself the core team. Let me just put this out here. Try and have no core team as much as you can. And the reason is that when you have a core team, you're basically saying that there's an us and a them, and that these contributors are more important than those contributors. And if you just say like, hey, we're all on the team, we're all on the Rubinius team, we're all trying to get it, no matter how big your contribution is, that basically is putting trust in all of your contributors to do that. And trust in your contributors is a transformative thing. They're going to look at that, they're going to say, wow, this person thinks that I am worthy or responsible enough to have all of these privileges within the project that I just started on, and I need to fulfill this person's trust. So let me give you an example of what I mean here. So in Rubinius, we have a policy that we've had since the very first contributor. And that is one that, if you submit one patch to Rubinius, you get commit privileges. So I have given out commit privileges for a period, for a 1 byte patch before. Someone, hey, your docs are missing a period in this particular place. Oh, okay, send me a patch. You're a contributor now. Go ahead and just fix up that doc file as much as you want. In fact, just fix up anything you want for all that matter. And that seems scary, because that seems like, oh my gosh, you're going to let in the unwashed masses, the hordes. They're going to come in and just delete all your code. The reality is that that one patch is a sufficient. They have to learn the project. They have to look at it. They have to talk to me. They have to do. Whoa, this mic is being weird. Even if it takes them 5 minutes, they had to take the initiative to do that. That is a big enough hurdle that they want to be in the project that I think they should be. And the upshot is that having them saying that I think that they're responsible enough is better than having to say that they're privileged enough to do it. So when you have a core team and people wait years to be on the core team, and they have to go through all these things, they have to submit resumes and do all, really what you're saying is it's a privilege that there's this lofted status of these certain people, which in fact you may get the exact same. You may get better code quality and more code from some external contributor than you ever did from your core team. So, yeah. So the responsibility part of this is amazing, and having seen it over the past three plus years, it really is true. It seems like one of those sort of pipe dreams, but the minute that I have had contributors who sent some kind of crazy patches in, and we said, okay, well, that's maybe not working out as well. Why don't you go do X, Y, and Z? And they do that. They submit them back to me. We commit them, and then all of a sudden they turn into these just really responsible people, where they're like, oh, I was thinking about doing feature X. Can I talk to you about that? Because I wanted to do this. And they realize that you have given them, you have trusted them, and they don't want to break that trust. They don't want to break that bond. So skeptics may say that there will be chaos in your project. And people have said like, oh, it's not going to work for Rubinius. It's just going to be complete, all the code's going to be crap because you're going to have people everywhere doing all sorts of just crazy shit. The reality is that over the 3.5 years, 4 years that we've been doing this, we've only had like less than 10 reverts for commits by people where they were doing something that we just didn't want to be doing at that time. And in every single case, when we went to them, we said, hey, we saw that you added this code, but it actually broke all these other things. We're going to go ahead and revert it. Almost all of them said, I'm sorry, is the first thing they said. They said, I didn't realize. That's, I can feel terrible. We tell them, oh, no problem. We're going to revert it. Go ahead and, I see where you're going. Work on it again, and then go ahead and if you want to talk to us about it, and you can submit it back again in a week. And almost all of those people did that exact thing. They went off. They figured out, oh, yeah, I forgot to run the test, or I didn't do this. They submit it back to us, and lo and behold, all of those changes make it back in. So why is that? I keep saying it. it is this idea of responsibility, that they feel responsible for the project because they're a part of it. There's no special lofted status. But, and looking back on the laws that we talked about earlier, this conflicts with the idea of no, right? Because there are times where you're going to want to say, no, we don't want that feature. Yes, we do. No, we don't want to go in that direction, whatever it might be. So that's where you need to pull in the fourth law. You have to communicate about features. You have to figure out amongst your team what the trajectory you want to go is. And if someone adds something that you don't feel is the right way to go, yeah, that's fine. You revert it. You have a conversation. And if they decide, well, I really want to explore this avenue, again, it's they're doing you a favor by being in the project. So you should really never tell them, no, don't experiment. I want you to be doing X. Never dictate those things, because if they have the enthusiasm to go experiment, you should figure out how to pull that in as much as possible. So rather than push them off, tell them, okay, great, we're not ready, like I said earlier, we're not ready for your awesome. Go do it in a fork. Go do it in a branch. And try it out. And let us know how it goes. Because who knows, like I said, maybe they're onto something that you have not figured out yet, that in 2 weeks' time they come back and they go, oh, by the way, I made the whole thing 30 times faster. Good thing I went off and experimented. Ha, ha, ha. Like, awesome. That's the best case scenario. You merge that back in, and everybody's great. So we've talked a lot about what you're doing as the project, the people who are already on the project. So, but as a contributor, someone who's trying to be with a project and contribute to a project, you have to still remember those laws. Remember that they want, the people in the project want to work with you. And if you have enthusiasm, they want to let you work and let you have as much fun as they can. But they're going to say no sometimes. They're going to come back to you and they're going to say, oh, that's a great idea, but I just don't think that we want to do that. Don't take it personally. Remember, it's easy to take a rejection and go like, well, they're not ready for me, yo. I've got too much going on. They don't understand me or whatever it is. Don't take it personally. Just say, okay, great, I'm really interested in this thing. Maybe I'll go off and work on it by myself. Understanding that both parties know about these guidelines, everybody can communicate and participate in a very non-hostile way. So remember that open source development is a social contract. It's how we're interacting with other people. And when a contributor comes to you, they want to succeed. They want to be a part of this project. That's why they came to you in the first place. But they also want respect. So if they've got a great idea and you're not so sure about it, let them go off and play around with it. Don't tell them no, that they don't know what they're talking about, that they don't understand all the problems. Let them find out those problems for themselves. Let them go off and do the experiment. Because if you give those people give them respect for their ideas and for what they're working on, you will get that respect insofar as how they're contributing to the project and keeping everything moving as a well-oiled machine. Because, at the end of the day, we all want to just be loved by other people, but also we want to feel like we have contributed. We want to love the thing that we're doing every day. So if you were able to make someone's day brighter or more enjoyable because they feel included as part of your group, then it's sort of your responsibility in a way to make sure to push that through and to succeed in making them happy. So that is the end. Thank you. Do you want to do questions or, okay, we can do some questions. Yes?
I see a bit of a problem with the idea of not having a core team.
Okay.
The way that I see it, the really massive projects, it kind of makes sense to either have a company or an organization behind it. And that's what I'm seeing with GitHub organizations. And there's a Rails organization on there with a feature. And
Sure. So the comment was that there are, in a big project, there's a lot of times there's going to be people who have the responsibility of, say, merging in other patches or merging in other branches and things like that. And that's fine. You're going to have people who are going to have responsibilities in the project. You're all going to be working on something, right? You're going to, Sally's working on merging in, and Bob's working on this new feature, whatever it might be. But the point is that there's nothing about saying like, okay, these are the privileged few who get to make all these decisions, right?
So there could be people who are in the organization that could be de-emphasized, but still be people that
Sure. Well, basically, it's all about the worth of the developer, right? Just because someone gets to merge in the patches doesn't mean they're any more worthy than the person who wrote the feature in the first place, right? So it's a little bit about how you decide to organize the people in the project, but it's a lot about what the tone of the project is and how you talk about the people in the project, right? So if you talk about, oh yeah, we have a bunch of contributors to the project, we have the Rubinius team, which is 200 people, that, if you talk about it like that, then there's never this idea that, oh well, yeah, you have some interesting ideas, but mine are better. Mine are more important, right? And it's not having that tone that's the important part. So, because you're going to have responsibilities. People are going to have to, oh yeah, you're going to be merging in patches for the next month or whatever. Maybe they hand it off after that. So. Yeah, but it's not. I mean, we make, like I said, we make people contributors right after they give their first patch in. So we haven't really used it for a whole lot. Any other questions? Yeah?
What license?
What license? What license what?
What license do you like?
Okay. Yeah, so what software license do I like? I like, oh, this is dangerous. There's water right here. I like BSD, MIT license. I'm not a big GPL fan, mainly because I think it violates that premature process rule, right? So it invokes all these things that the contributors can and can't do with it and all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of times it's just unnecessary, so. Anyone else? Yeah?
Do you think that the open commitment policy, like Rubinius has, would work on a larger project like Rails, where there's way more people that have way more opinions about every little detail? It seems like it would be harder to manage.
Sure. Right. So the question was, would the one patch to commit bit policy work on a big project like Rails where there's a lot of opinionated people? I totally think it would work, but it would be a different model. You'd have to model how Rails is built slightly differently. Because right now, basically, what happens is, and the crowd here can correct if I'm wrong. You're going to have, the Rails core team, which is however many people it is, 10 people, is going to communicate often about what's going on. And they're going to get sort of this barrage from the unwashed masses of feature requests and like feature requests and bug reports and all that kind of stuff, right? And so the interior is talking, but the interior doesn't talk to the outside. So if you wanted to have a one commit bit policy that was very open, you have to make your communication include all of those people. So you can make a decision. You have to be willing to say no. So if someone comes to you and they've got this idea for a feature of, I don't know, whatever, some silly feature, and you decide it doesn't fit in with say what is going to be in the next release. If you tell them no, that's fine. If you set up the idea that you'll respect them and they'll respect you and that this is just not the time for that feature, then if you've gone down those roads, if you've built up that trust level, then there's no love lost. When you tell them no, they go like, oh, okay, well, that's too bad. I see why you're saying that, right? So it has to be the tone of the project has to be right. The way that you communicate with everybody has to be right. I don't think it would work like if they had an open commit bit policy, but still only this 10 people were talking, it wouldn't work. Because then the unwashed masses wouldn't know how to coordinate with everyone else. They would, in fact, probably what would happen is they would invent their own communication mechanism outside of those 10 people. Does that mean I'm done? Yeah.
I'm guessing this will vary depending on the project you're working at, but I've thought about trying to go and approach a project and contribute something, but the amount of time I have seems relatively limited.
Sure.
If you want to contribute something, do you need to be ready to rework everything before you do so, or can you just toss something out there and see what they say?
Absolutely. Oh, so, so the question was that sometimes it seems like contributing seems like no. Sometimes contributing seems like they're gonna ask a lot of you, and you're gonna want to have to put in a lot of time, and maybe you don't have a lot of time. Don't worry about that. If you want to contribute to a project and you see that there's, oh yeah, they've got there's a method missing, or it returns some weird value for this particular case, and you want to submit a patch that fixes that or adds a particular method. Don't worry about about whether or not they're going to say like, oh yeah, that's fine, but we need you to rewrite it. Just ignore that might happen. Put it out there. Because sometimes I might say, oh, this is great, and you get it for the first time. The worry that it's gonna take up too much of your time and you're not gonna be able to do it, worry about that when it actually occurs. So if they come back to you and they say like, okay, this is a great feature, but we need, in order to do this feature, we actually need this, we need that, blah, 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 blah. If you go back to them and you say like, I don't have time to be doing that right now, they'll, that's fine. They'll say like, okay, great. Well, if, we'll talk to somebody else. Maybe somebody else has the time, or you can coordinate with them, and, so. I mean, don't worry about the time commitment thing. If you feel like you've got time for a one-line patch, then submit a one-line patch. Yes?
Have any advice for total newcomer about how to start on contributing to open source?
Yeah. So, advice for someone who's never contributed to open source before. Well, you're here at a Ruby conference, so you probably use some open source software because Ruby is open source, right? So, and you're here, you like to write software. You're not just a user of software. So find some of those projects, of that code that you use, of those projects, just find something interesting, right? Even if it's, okay, yeah, there's this, this plugin that I use every day. It'd be nice if it also did this other feature, right? And don't worry about the process, about whose that is and what they're doing. Figure out if you want to write the code first. Write the code, and then worry about how do I contribute it back. That's the easiest way to get started. I mean, when I first started doing open source stuff, I didn't communicate back to the other people about what I was doing because, well, I didn't have time. I was working at a company at the time, and I needed to add these features because we needed them in the product. So that was the way it progressed. I need feature X, I'll write this feature. And then in time, you realize, like, oh, I should really contribute these back. So you take the time, you give them back. I mean, it's in the same way of the process, don't make it any harder than it needs to be. That's so cliche, but I mean, you want to write if you like to write code and you wrote some code, you think someone else could use the code, give that other person your code. That's, yeah. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.